Welcome to the Web Information Systems class. I'm delighted you have chosen to take this class. Tanvi Banerjee and I will be the instructors for this class. Most of the classes will be conducted by Tanvi and a number of other instructors that might help you to deal with a variety of topics we will cover. This course is part of the Big and Smart Data Sciences certificate. So those of you who have registered for 7,000 level credit would be getting credit for that certificate program. The way we are going to teach this class is called flipped classroom. So most of the classes would have three components. Before the class, you would be watching a pre-recorded online video and other related materials. During the class, there will be discussions. So you have to come prepared with the before the class component of this course, and come with your questions, and we'll try to answer them in the class. During the class, we'll also have some exercises. So in the supervised manner, so you'll be able to ask questions. So you'll be able to carry out those exercises and request consultation with the instructor who will be out there available to answer your questions. For many of the classes, you will also have exercises which will be graded. Tanvi will talk to you in more detail about how the grading process will work. Now, in the first module of the first class, let me go over the preliminaries and the objectives for this class. What you would have observed, and if not, you should notice, is that there is huge growth in amount of data that on the web, and due to all the things that happen around the web. So you can see in this chart, and the amount of data has grown substantially over the period of year. One of the statistics says that there is as much data in the last 2 years as there has been before for the entire history before that. Right? So in every 2 years, we might be doubling the data that is made available on the web. So with all this data, it becomes very hard for people to make decisions, for applications to use just the right amount of data for achieving whatever purpose the applications are built for. And there are a number of reasons why this data is growing. Earlier in the web, there used to be web pages, and the content was primarily textual content. Those are the standard web pages you had. More and more multimedia data came up. Today, if you see, the largest amount of traffic on the web is video traffic. In addition, somewhere between the time the web started and now, there was an evolution of what we call today social web, the social networking sites, and the amount of data that were created by these social networking sites started to exceed the data that were created before these sites came into existence. And today there is yet another significant new sources of data that is coming. It's called Internet of Things. This is the devices and the sensors that are able to collect the data all around around the world about, let's say, climate and about the weather. Then there is data around that are collected by sensors on human bodies. And then there are sensors within human bodies that can also collect the data. There is an ingestible pill that basically captures video going through the GI tract of a human. And there are other devices, for example, that deal with cardiovascular systems and so on and so forth. So all these are creating massive amount of data, and this data is becoming again available through the web. And that is the latest growth in the data. In 2008 or around that time, we exceeded the capacity to store all the data that we created. Before that, we had enough disk space that we could store all the data that was created. But now, so much more data is created that we can't even store that. That means either you use that data almost immediately or lose it. Right? So that makes for another challenging problem. Now, and here is, you can see one statistic: more data has been created in the last 3 years than all the past 40,000 years. Okay. The core subjective, and what you should notice is that the term we use is web information systems. It's a part of broader challenges dealing with large amount of data. The word information is very important. The web itself, for example, there are a number of definitions of the web, but the definition of the web that Tim Berners-Lee, the father of the web, has used is: the World Wide Web is a universe of network accessible information and embodiment of human knowledge. So it has basically become the largest repository of documents and data, and the largest source of information and knowledge. Notice these three terms: data, information, and knowledge. So with regards to this the scope of the web, what we want to do is to understand how do you effectively access and utilize all this data that is made available on the web. How do you build data-centric web applications, and how do you convert the data into information? It is the information that humans use to make decisions. It is the information that humans use to take an action, right? So it's very important. The data by itself, as I will show you in the next slide, has much less value compared to the information. So there is that particular aspect that we'll be looking at. How do we build and share utilize the knowledge? That is another kind of topic that we'll deal with. So here on this slide, I introduce to you an essential part of the terminology. At the bottom of this pyramid that you see on the right hand side, you will see that there is data, right? And here's an example of the data. Raw data is something that might be like this, right? The data basically stands for symbols, signals, stimuli, observation, facts. So, for example, the data would be, let's say, 8, and that 8 happens to be by itself not very meaningful until you know that that 8 is the degree Fahrenheit temperature right now as I speak, right? By itself, the number 8, which is what the data is not very, very meaningful, right? And hence the need for thinking about information. So in the example, the raw data was something that was captured by, let's say, a video recorder, looking at traffic. But the information could be, and the meaning of that data could be that there is south-facing traffic light on the corner of Pitt and George Street that turned red, right? And that is information. It is something that you infer from the data. It gives meaning and the purpose to help answer questions like who, what, where, how many, when. So here, what is that light turned red, right? Now, once you have this information, you can use the data in a lot more meaningful way, and hence the emphasis on information rather than just the data. Now, beyond the data in this so-called DIKW pyramid, we also define knowledge. That is the information having been processed, organized, or structured, being applied to put in action. And it conveys understanding, experience, accumulated learning. Right? So you might have a number of facts, let's say, on a Wikipedia page, but the collective information that a Wikipedia page and Wikipedia as a whole represents is the knowledge, right? It's the collective intelligence that humans have, and that they authored that thing. They organized these Wikipedia pages in a variety of ways. They are linked from one information piece to another information piece, and so on and so forth. In the and in this also involves representing, looking at the information in a context. For example, here with regards to the traffic light, it's a traffic light I'm driving towards has turned red, right? So that will be the knowledge. Okay. Now and then people would actually act upon that knowledge. So the wisdom is something that you should be doing. You say something where you would use your judgment, something that is for the good or bad, and things of that nature. So, for example, when you apply that knowledge that the traffic light that on the road that I'm driving towards has turned red, then you would, subconsciously in this particular case decide that I better stop my car, and then you'd be applying the brakes and stopping the car, right? So this is a broader context of these very important terms: data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And while there are, we need to understand how do we use large amount of data. We need to understand. We need to equally pay attention to the information, converting this data into things that helps you understand what that data represents, right? And earlier I mentioned that this course is part of our Big and Smart Data Sciences certificate program, and this term big data is very hot today, very broadly used today. But and with regards to big data, then there are issues of so-called V's: V for volume, V for variety, V for velocity, V for veracity. And so, in the broader things that are happening today on the web and in computing in general, we have massive explosion of the data that I mentioned earlier in my chat here. There is a lot of variety of data. So you might have data on the same information. Let's say you're talking about a traffic accident. You might have a video that might have captured traffic accident. You might have road sensor data that would tell you that traffic has come to stop or is moving very slowly. And then you might also have somebody tweet and say there is an accident at the corner of road A and road B. Right? So there's a whole variety of data that are there, and you need to be able to deal with those data. There's velocity, the rate at which some things reported. There were something like 7,000 tweets per second, I believe, at the height of Hurricane Sandy. Right? So huge, variety, huge sort of rate. The rate at which the data basically gets generated is pretty high also. There are lies and untruthful data also, that's the veracity information, and these kind of stuff are also somewhat relevant to what we are going to talk about in this course after we have dealt with basic technologies and techniques. So the course plan for this for our course is that we will learn and exercise a variety of techniques, technologies and tools that focus on collecting and using data to build rich data and information-centric applications. Right? And for us to get better understanding, we would have frequent exercises to become comfortable. So it will be not only about presenting in the class or giving you these video lectures, but it will be, we'll also have hands-on exercises so that you are a lot more comfortable with these techniques and technologies. And then there will be a substantial project. Our class consists of some undergraduates and some graduate students. And the graduate students will be expected, particularly those who have registered for 7,000 level credit, would be expected to have additional assignments, and also they'll be expected to carry out more in-depth, more demanding project in this class.